In DaVinci Resolve, you have a couple of ways that you can go about creating text and title animations, and in this video I'm going to show you two different ways that you can go about adding them to your videos. So the first one that we're going to create is right here. I have this nice drone clip and I wanted to maybe do a title for a YouTube video or a blog or a family trip, so we can go ahead and do it that way. And then the next way is like this, which is a little bit more complicated, but still not scary. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start fresh here to show you kind of my process. So I've got this drone clip. I'm going to drag it from my media pool into my timeline, and I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger. If you want to make your clips easy to adjust inside of the Edit tab, all you have to do is come over here to the left, and you'll drop down, you'll see Transform, and that will give you the anchors to be able to resize your footage just like that. And then you can turn it on and off. From here I'm going to go down to the Colors tab, and then I'm just going to add a quick LUT to give it some color. Let's see. That's a cool one. So I'll apply that. And then I'll go back over to the Edit panel. And from here, we're going to go ahead and look in our toolbox where we have all of our different effects that we can drag and drop onto the timeline. And if you're not seeing this, you'll need to go up to the top left and just toggle on the effects. So what we're looking for here is under titles, we're looking for text plus. We have a few options. We've got lower left, and these are all sort of baked in text effects that DaVinci has. And they're very simple to use, but we'll go ahead and drag in the text plus. And then we'll sort of position it. And now the first thing that we're going to do is take these little handles at the beginning and drag them forward, and then we'll do the same at the back, and you'll see what that does. It just sort of creates a little bit of a opacity in the transition. And then we'll come back and click on Text Plus, and then in the top right you'll see we have Title Settings. And in Title we can actually select all that text and do My Adventure, and that lets us change the actual text. But let's make the font a little bit different. So you'll come down underneath My Text and you'll say let's say font. Let's do that, and let's do bold italic. So that's pretty cool, pretty easy, very straightforward. And now we'll move on to the next one, but before we do, if this video is providing you any help, please subscribe. We're trying to reach 500 subscribers by Christmas, so if you could subscribe, that would be fantastic. So for the next one, it's a little bit more complicated. It sort of drops down and then fades away. And so in order to do that, what we're going to do is we'll just duplicate this clip, and then we're going to come down here and choose Fusion. And the Fusion tab tends to scare a lot of people because it's set up way differently than you might be used to if you're used to like Premiere Pro or After Effects. You have, similar to the color panel, where you have nodes for everything that you're doing. But it's not scary, it just takes a little bit of finesse and you can get some cool results. So on the left-hand side, we'll have our node, and this is basically our footage, and then this is the output of our footage, and everything in between gets added into our footage. And if you'll notice here in this top part, we have all of these different options that we can easily drag and drop into our node area. So I'm not going to complicate this too much. What we're going to do is come to the top left here, and we're going to choose the T, and we're going to drag it onto our footage. And so now you'll see we have a merge node along with a text node. And if we click on the text node, you'll see we have very similar options up here on the right hand side like we did with dragging on the text plus onto the timeline. So here I'm just going to type in My Adventure, and then I'm going to change the font to something cooler. Do very similar to the last one. There we go, that's cool. And great, so now we have our text in there, but if you'll notice, it's not doing anything, it's just very stationary. So now we're gonna add some animation to this text. And let's think about kind of what we might want to do. In the example that I had, the text dropped down from the top and faded in to the center. So in order to do that, let's click on the text, and then that will let us add some options over here on the right side. So we'll click in this text box, and then we'll right click and say follower. And that's going to unlock the modifiers panel. And in the modifiers panel, we have several different options. We've got timing, we have text, we have transform, shading, and I think what we'll do is start with the shading tool. And if you notice, we'll come down here to the very bottom and we'll see position. And this is going to let us adjust the up and down position of the actual element. But in order to see anything, what we're going to need to do is drag our playhead up a little bit. And I like to think in reverse with this kind of stuff. So set your position on your playhead to where you want the text to end up. And then come down over here to the Y, and we'll just set a keyframe. And you'll notice that we have this new path 1 pop up. You don't have to worry about that. All you'll do is double click on follower 1, and that will bring us back to our position. So another great thing about DaVinci Resolve is that you have what's called the spline editor. And if you're not seeing this, you'll need to come up to the top right and choose spline. And that will let you see where all of the keyframes are being set in your timeline. So you'll see down here we have this one that we just created because that's the final ending of this text. So now let's drag the playhead back and let's set the text to go maybe from the top. And then now when we play it back, it comes down. But you can see it's very like structured. It doesn't have any kind of smooth motion to it. But with DaVinci Resolve and the spline editor, all you have to do is click on this little lock symbol, and then you can adjust the curve easily. For me, coming from something like After Effects, I find that this is a much better way to adjust the curves on your motion. So you can see that was much smoother, much nicer. Kind of drops down like that. Now let's do something about having it be just static at the top of the screen, right? So the next thing we're going to do is go over to our opacity. Now we know at the end when it drops down and it's in the center of the screen, we want it to be 100% opacity. So we're going to go to the properties and we're going to go to the right hand side and add a keyframe at 1. And now we're just going to drag the playhead to the left where it starts, and we're going to drag the opacity down to 0. So now our clip looks like this. Very nice. And you can really have a lot of fun in here because all of these settings are adjustable using this same method. So anything you might want to change, you can come in here and just kind of play around with it and see what you get. So this is really cool. Let's let it play for a few frames and then we'll add a fade out. So that looks about right. And now all we have to do is go up to the opacity and we'll click it. And then we have to almost think like we're thinking in reverse again. So we want it to play up until this point at 100% opacity. And then as we go a little bit past it, we'll drag it back to 0. So now you can really see in the spline editor how the opacity starts at 0, it climbs up to 100, and then it stays at 100 until we get to this keyframe, and then now it drops back down to 0 again. So it's really easy, not super complicated. And the last thing I'll do here is just add a little bit of a ease on this. The other great thing I really love about the spline tool is that you can select all of these things that you're working on, and let's say you want it to be a little bit longer. You just drag it out. So now we have a much longer fade out. And once you're done here, you can go back to your Edits tab and then you'll see we can play the footage back. And there's our title. So again, I hope this helped you. If it did, please let me know down in the comments, and stay tuned because we'll be posting more DaVinci Resolve tutorials soon.